quick. And we're live. What's up, Kingdom of Rock? This is Matt Gibson with yet another exciting episode in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis in the world, and particularly in this situation in the music industry. I'm here with my wonderful and super cheery co-host today, Michael. How's it going, Mike?
I am cheery. I am happy.
Hey, that's good. It looks like it's a sunshiny day in San Francisco back there.
It's actually a little overcast today, sadly, but bright.
That's cool.
It's nighttime where one of our guests is, though.
Yeah, we've got Mr. Nigel Bennett in London and Briana Alexis in Los Angeles. How's everybody doing today?
Awesome.
I'm doing good. Sorry, after you, Briana. Ladies first.
Great. I was so glad to get up and put some makeup on and brush my hair. I feel human.
Yeah, it's good to get up.
We should do
9 o'clock at night here in London, so the curtains are shut and it's dark and wet out there. But I get up and I don't put any makeup on, but there you go.
I already got busted once on this show for my Avengers pajama bottom, so I'm trying to actually put on pants
from below. We got our PJs on.
Yeah, exactly.
Waist down.
Do a pajama party. Like, that would be cool. Like, we'll do one of our community meetups that we have on Sundays.
We should. Oh, yeah.
We'll do a Zoom pajama party. That would be funny. Of course.
I saw that. I want to talk to you more about that. Those Sundays, your meetups.
Yeah, definitely. You're invited.
Well, that was my day every day, actually, until I got busted. Now I feel bad and I'm wearing pants all the time.
I know. I'm not, but I can't stand up. No, I'm just kidding. So actually, today I'm wearing shorts because it is beautiful here in Los Angeles. I think it's going to be like mid-60s today, something like that.
Matt, what party in LA are you?
I'm in San Pedro.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I live down. I live down on Fort MacArthur.
And that terrifying bridge going over.
Yeah. Oh, I love that bridge. It's so cool.
I'm terrified of that bridge.
Yeah, the one going to Long Beach. So anyway, we're in the midst of this crisis, and we're all just trying to stay positive and keep things going and stay busy. I was going to ask you, Nigel, how's things going? You're in London, of all places. That's kind of an epicenter of the COVID crisis.
Well, it is, yeah. I'm right in the centre of London as well, and it's Oxford Street's at the bottom of my street, one of the busiest streets in Europe, and it's completely deserted. There is no one anywhere. It's like one of those apocalypse movies. And for the first time in my life, I'm obeying the rules because I think it needs to be done. I'm staying in, go out with a mask on, and only go out for food and brief exercise because it's a social duty to beat this thing. But I've never seen London like it. This year will go down in history, 2020, the year of the virus. And it's surreal, I think. Yeah.
I did want to shout out Jerry Best is out there. Awesome bass player. Go check him out. And Richie Hayden is tuning in. So just wanted to say hi to everybody watching the show right now. If you're on Twitter, please give us a retweet and share the broadcast out on Facebook. Let everybody know we're live right now. Hey, Michael Trickell. And Briana, how about you? How's your part of LA? Is it as deserted up there as it is down here? Hey, Keith St. John.
It is, except for, all the workout fanatics, and I'm included in one of those. I have to get out every day. And just because I'm sitting so much when I come home, and it's just wakes me up, The streets are, at night, it's deserted. Everything closes at pretty much 8 o'clock. But it doesn't stop activity. People are riding bikes and running and walking. And so that's pretty busy. But it is surreal. It's in LA. You never see. I've never seen it. I feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie. It's very strange.
Yeah, I read a report today that they had a bunch of people that weren't obeying the social distancing rules because they were hanging out doing illegal streeting on the empty streets in Los Angeles. Street racing.
Oh.
Yeah, they're like, hey, nobody on the freeway. Let's Let's all go get the Lambos out and make some noise.
Have the idiot.
Up here in Northern California, I'm starting to see a little fractures a little bit. And it's kind of, I don't mean to please don't send letters and emails. I'm not down on parents, but it seems to be, it's revolving around kids, where there's like play dates now kind of in the driveways, but you have a lot of kids that aren't related and adults that are not related that are kind of sitting around while their kids are playing in the street. And it's like, it's still that seems like kind of not cool. I mean, I realize your kids are probably losing their minds and they want to see their friends, but you also don't want to see them sick either, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stupid people that do that. It's silly, but Darwinism doesn't work, because if they die, fair enough, out of your own stupidity. But the trouble is, you could affect so many others. And over here, our health services are stretched to the absolute brink. And overnight, 850 people just died. So it's very real. We got to do our bit, and social distance.
Well, it's funny because I kind of have a thing for House Hunters International, and it's interesting because like when the Americans go to France or England or Spain or whatever, and they have children or little children, it's always like, oh, I don't think this apartment is very kid safe, And of course, I grew up in a time when nobody cared about kids. Go kill yourself out and play in the street. But I think it's funny that the very same parents that will worry about, not enough slats on a fence across a balcony will now go out and hang out in their driveways with a myriad bunch of kids running around, possibly infecting each other and the adults. So, interesting times.
It's an oxymoron, or moron something, right?
I still think a lot of people don't think this is real. If it's not affecting them, I just don't. I think they think it's happening to others and that they can't be affected. And, they just need a wake-up call, because I see the same thing. I see kids without masks, kids playing, neighbors celebrating birthday parties. They just need to take it a little bit more serious.
Well, here I went out to do some shopping and some banking yesterday and then skitter back home, and I couldn't even I did have a mask, but they weren't even letting people in to the banks or the stores without masks on, which people did not have them on. And, some older guy, I say older guy when I'm about as old as anybody, but it's funny. He goes, what a mask. Usually when you walk into a bank, they don't want you to wear a mask, that kind of.
We don't look like bank robbers.
Yeah. I went out to get a cup of coffee, and they're like, hey, do you want your regular? And I had my mask on. I'm like, no, this is stick up.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we're going to rob you. We need money worse than you do. And I was like, wow. A lot of the businesses, just friends and joking and everything. But I think it's definitely a brave new world where everybody is kind of now can just walk around with face coverings. And I saw somebody the other day that looked like a friend of mine kind of, and I couldn't tell. And so I was like, hey, is your name so-and-so? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, sorry. It's just a weird experience out there now, with all the coverings and stuff.
Well, nothing is open yet. We can't go and get coffee or anything. Everything is shut except for pharmacies and supermarkets. So it's a no-brainer. That's the only two places that you would go to. There's no restaurant.
Well, I think you guys got it right. There shouldn't be so much freedom. I hate to say that, but they're just, people aren't being smart.
Well, we're watching people behind us and ahead, but we're quite a small country geographically. I mean, the whole of Britain is probably California size, and yet they're dying in droves here because we're tightly compact. And we are learning from what people have been doing before us. Italy was the first big one to get it. And also, of course, China. And I believe that Singapore and South Korea laxed their staying in thing early, and now they're having a second wave. So that's frightening. And I mean, I never thought I'd be doing an interview talking about this shit, but it's real. But it's I don't find it any hardship staying in and watching Netflix. It's my idea of heaven, actually.
Frank Bowman, one of our listeners, said it's like a community 5K event in East Tennessee. So I guess people aren't staying in there. So
that's just whatever, community of rock people, stay in, be safe. We heard from Chris Como's report, who had it. that even if you get a light case, there's no such thing as a light case of this. You don't want to get this at all. Even, you'll probably survive it, but trust me, you don't want it.
That's right.
And you don't want to get other people sick at all. And for crime, I also worry from a global, mental scenario. It's like we haven't really even been sheltered in place that long. What happens if they tell us that, hey, you're not going to be able to go outside till October? I mean, people are
it's possible. It's possible. Right. All this short-term thing is fueled by the economy, like your dear leader. That's what he's thinking about, because there's re-election, and it's put his whole plan to shit. But of course, it's not an economic or political decision. It should be scientific and medical. End of story.
Well, I think. I was going to ask you, Nigel. Has obviously it's affected your bottom line with touring and playing out. How has all the changes affected your music career?
Well, I'll tell you what, before the COVID-19, I'd be out there playing 2 people. And now I'm not going out at all, except to the supermarket or the pharmacy. It's totally stopped everything in all walks of life. Nobody is doing anything. And you don't know when that will be. I reckon for the best part of this year, because even if gradually they ease lockdown so that the younger people can go to work to start the economy ticking, I've heard that they will probably keep the older people in for quite a while longer. It's going to be a while before they're allowed social gatherings. I saw the one American news I get here, NBC Nightly News, and yesterday they had a big stadium in LA and they were talking about the sports. He said there won't be any here for the whole year. So it's affecting the sporting industry, the music, actors, theatres. Cinemas are shut. I mean, any form of collective entertainment is really, until further notice, you can't make plans. People are rebooking optimistically to play, say, in the fall or the autumn, as we call it. But of course, right, it could easily still be locked down, or not full lockdown, but not straight back into hot, sweaty gatherings where people are jammed in, and breathing all over each other.
Well, it's also like you mentioned, the film community. I imagine right now there's no film crews out there. So it's going to be interesting when, just on that side of the entertainment business, when all of a sudden, there's no new films to show because we had a 6 month period where nobody was filming anything. It's just going to be, it's just weird. And, I agree with you. I'm not sure the public's going to want to go out to concerts. Certainly the type of I do.
Money to. After all, everyone's been so broke as well, they might not have the disposable income to go to concerts, let alone want to. Some people will be very gung-ho about it, and others will be very timid and worried. And so there's both those aspects. The only thing people can do, when you mention TV and acting, the writers can write, and it's the same for musicians. It's a time for writing.
Are you doing any writing right now, Briana? What are you doing? How has it affected you, by the way?
Well, I'm busy. Michael was talking about the studios. I work with the studios. I work on the film and TV side as well, tying into music, post-production, sound supervision, and everything. So during the day, I'm working remote. So and everything is being pushed back. So we're scrambling on release dates. So I do that. I always have my foot in that as a freelance contractor. And then I do my music. So I get to see both sides of the world and how film is tying into music and how it's affecting both sides. And, it's definitely rethinking streaming and kicking up. And Amazon is probably in one of the best positions, Amazon Studios with all their streaming, because that's where everything is obviously moving. I don't think people are going to want to go out to the theaters anytime soon to see movies and being, around other people. I think that might take a while.
Well, and that's a hit too, because I know the big thing, I think the James Bond film was the first one that said, hey, listen, we're not releasing, we're going to wait till the fall. Yeah. But if the fall comes and people don't want to be in theaters, then maybe every film that we've been waiting for might be streaming, because I know they're releasing some films now. In the States, Nigel, it's about $20, if you want to see a first run film, like they call them home premieres. Yeah. Typically you pay about $5 for them, but they're upcharging that. But But you know, you're not going to make the millions of dollars you need to make on a James Bond film at $20 a pop if they can't release it in October or November. So it's right back to the economy going down the drain.
Yeah.
And there's speculation right now, like AMC theaters. You know, there's a lot of speculation they may file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
You know, so there's, I mean, it's
because also
go ahead.
What Michael said is, you know, they're going to be charging, but then instead of having 5 tickets for the family,
That's
you know, the family is going to watch. You got 5 people watching for $20. You know,
Yeah. Well,
and then you don't have any of the food and all that kind of stuff.
And obviously, AMC doesn't make its bones on theater tickets; it's the popcorn and the drinks.
Exactly.
And that. So
Right.
you know, they may be gone. I don't know. That would be horrible because I love going out to see movies, but
yeah,
it's a new world.
It's like going out to see live music. You want the experience. You want the experience of, you know, getting together with your family and having that experience and getting out of the house. So I hope that stays.
Being in the mosh pit half naked and all sweaty, rubbing against all those other people. No, but some people do that, and they won't be in a hurry. It's funny. Whenever I go to America, I love America. I always go to the cinema because your cinemas compared with ours are so much bigger. The whole experience is amazing. And I go to AMC all the time. And the thought of that not happening, you get those big reclining seats and the whole works. And buckets of popcorn this big.
It sounds like in big buckets of popcorn.
It's all about the excess here, right?
Yeah,
it has been.
Well, and the recliners, they have all the recliner chairs now. Now you can have a lazy boy.
Yeah.
Well,
for $5 more.
Well, Briana, let's say that we're not gigging until 2021. Are you comfortable? And then Nigel, you can answer this too. We're just letting Briana hit it first. But are you comfortable doing things like home concerts on video and stuff like that to reach your audience, or will you just release canned videos with your music, or how would you want to approach the I'm at home artist scenario?
Well, I'm rethinking that, and this has been, you know, I got through sort of a really slow period for the first month, thinking, oh, we're going to be back next week. I kept thinking, you know, and talking to the studios, you know, thinking we're going to be back mid-May. And now as things go, you know, so my schedule was so off, I wasn't planning things, and for me, it's once I got over that hump of sort of the reality sitting in that, hey, we might be here for a while. You know, I'm trying to turn the negative into a positive and getting to all of my woodshedding and all my editing projects, because I do that. I have my hands in editorial and in post, and I can do all these things, and I have the applications on my computers. The problem was my time and delegating time. And even though I'm still working remote during the days, it's given me ideas for projects. So as I've been watching, you know, a lot of the live streams, it's given me a lot of ideas to do, to dig into some of my projects a little deeper that are not finished. I mean, I've been trying to write an instrumental guitar album for 5 years, you know, and I keep putting it off due to work, and oh, that's not good, I'm not finishing it. So I'm looking at this as a really good time to woodshed and to dig into my books and all my master classes. There's tons of master classes that I purchased that I never finished. And so it's, you know, and my guitar playing, doesn't represent who I am and what I went to school for, and sort of the music that I really enjoy. And so I'm just going to try and apply that a little bit more, and work with some of the musicians that I've been working with, and do like little live concerts and finish some of my songs and do some videos. So that's the plan. I think this can be really great, and it's just a matter of utilizing the time and staying positive and being creative and letting that negativity go, because there's nothing I can do. You know, and if there's any way I can support music and be creative and put it out there, I think this is a great opportunity to do it.
That's true. But now, Nigel, your career, I mean, you gig so much. I mean, you're gigging all the time in front of people. Are you going to be comfortable, you know, setting up your iPhone and filming yourself playing in your living room, or what are you going to do?
Well, what Briana said, but also I thought it's time I could work on some new skincare products, my range of those, and some fashion needlework. I thought some Union Jack split crotch panties, that sort of thing. It's time to expand. And I've always wanted to bake bread and learn how to embroider. No, I mean, I will write. The first thing I've been thinking of is write songs. With caution, I will do some acoustic things on video and put that out there. But so many people are doing it that you have to sort out the good from the bad. And I don't necessarily want to get lost in it. Having said that, if you play in a band full stop, there's so many bands out there from awful to brilliant, you know, so it's just the name of the game. So when I'm inspired, I will keep in touch via video. But I think the main thing to do is to write. And I've been having some good ideas, and that will be the positive side. I'm a very positive person. Every day I wake up and think, I've got a roof over my head, something to eat, and I haven't got the virus. That's a bloody good start. Yeah. With millions of others out there. How full is my cup? So, yeah, play the guitar. And when you play the guitar a lot, ideas come. That's what I shall do. I don't have a master plan, and I don't know how long this will last. None of us do.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Nigel, why don't you kind of take it back a few years and tell all the listeners a little bit about your musical journey, how you got into the music business?
Well, when I was 20 or 21, there was a paper in Britain, a music paper called The Melody Maker, and that had ads. And I did a lot of auditions a few years after I left school, playing in semi-pro bands and doing jobs that showed me what I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. And I auditioned for the Sex Pistols, Iron Maiden, to name but two, everyone.
Wow, that's cool.
That's awesome.
I got turned down by hundreds, but the one that said yes was this band called The Members, and joined them in 1978. And very quickly things took off, and we had a hit record, and we toured around the world, and it was brilliant. You know, it was very quick. It was like a whirlwind from struggling away to suddenly the pace, and of course then you're pressured to make the second album and the one after that and all that. It was a whole new experience, being stuck with a lot of other guys in very close proximity. It's nothing, you know, initially to get in a band, it's how well you play, and then you learn that you can't, there's no training for going on the road with people. And so you learn that. And now I know why people get out of their head on drinking drugs a lot. It's because part of it is so-called partying, but later I think it's because it's so fucking difficult. It's not easy. And so I did The Members. Then that broke up in about 1983 or 4. And then I did sessions quite a bit with all sorts of different people. I played in Eddie and the Hot Rods for a while. They're a British band who the singer sadly just died last year. Barry Masters. And then I joined the Vibrators again through Melody Maker in 1989. And that was after I'd come out of rehab. It was a very dull 86. I nearly died. I crashed and burned. And it was a cliche now, but in 86 it wasn't as much rehab, but I drank myself to death. And then I was very worried about whether there was life in music afterwards, and there certainly is. In fact, you don't do anything better drunk, and you play better without it. I joined them in 89 and have been with them on and off ever since. I had to take a couple of times out because the touring was so intense. It gets to me, living out of a suitcase all the time. But so really, that's 89 was a long time ago. And I've been doing that happily. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. So Briana, is like, how about you? Were you, how long have you been doing this, and how did you get started?
I've been in it most of my life. I got started, I come from a family of music. My father was a classical pianist, not well at one point, and then changed careers. But that had I think, just a subliminal heavy impact on me. I started playing later, but I got in a band within a year and was just completely obsessed with it. And you know, still being on my own and having to make a living, I wanted to combine music with my love of music with my work. So I started searching out music manufacturers in my area to work with, because there's no record labels, and I come from Orange County, and at that time we had Fender and we had Randall amplifiers. Mm-hmm. So I just basically walked into Randall and gave him my resume, and I was hired within like a week to work for Don Randall. And he's the co-founder. If you don't know, to give you a little history on Don Randall, he's the co-founder with Leo Fender. He was basically Leo's business partner in World War II, and that's sort of how Randall became Randall and Fender became Fender. Leo was the engineer, and Don Randall was the businessman. So I worked for Don, and that was an awesome experience. It was an amp manufacturing company, and at that time it was the late '80s, and solid state was the new latest greatest technology. So land of the big 412 amps and the 100-watt heads and the stacks, and that was a really fun time. It was a very mom and pop organization, and that started it for me. So working for the music manufacturers helped me with my music, because I understood and learned about artist relations. I learned about the business of music, which I knew would serve me as a musician. So to me, going to work was like getting an education in music every day. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of a reality which I carry even today. I sort of have my foot in my backup plan. That can be good and that can be bad. Bad in the sense of it doesn't keep me as uncomfortable. So sometimes when you're hungry, you have a tendency to be more creative, and it's all or nothing. So you put everything into music. But I've always had that balance. So that sort of started it for me. After I worked for Fender, I worked for Randall, I went to Fender and worked in R&D, and became obsessed with gear and understanding signal flow and just sort of how the amps worked. And then I decided I just needed to get really serious about it as a musician, and instead of seeing musicians and being with them. So I moved to LA to go to music school. And at that point there was MI and Grove. Dick Grove was a jazz school. Mm-hmm. And so I had to audition for school back then, and I didn't know enough. So I had to weigh in with Ted Green for private lessons. And he's sort of the theory. I mean, to me, I was so blessed to be able to even study with him. So I studied with him for a while, and that groomed me to start auditioning for school. And so went to school and got my education at Dick Grove School of Music in Van Nuys, studied jazz and fusion. And I had the naive idea of when I got out, I was going to all of a sudden be able to do sessions and get hired. But the reality was I had to pay back all those loans. So I threw myself back into working with music manufacturers and record labels and learn about publishing, licensing, placement. Because again, that's just another element that's going to help me as a musician. So that's sort of been my story. I've been working with the studios for, the past 3 decades. And now I'm a contractor. So as musical opportunities come up, I can do things like if I know I'm going to be playing some dates or I'm going to be doing a production project, I can stop working and then just work from my home studio and focus on my music. So I've had my hands in both areas, and that's helped me with endorsements, working with artist relations, and just sort of placing myself, because now I see both sides and I see how it works.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do want to ask you something real quick, but I wanted to acknowledge Angel Sylvester and Roddy Chong is listening from Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He's the violin player. And how's it going, Roddy? But I was going to ask you, Briana, what's your biggest musical dream though at this point in your career? Like if you had unlimited budget, unlimited, restrictions, anything, sky's the limit, where would you go with your music at this point?
Sky is the limit. I have 2 dreams. One would be to be on a big tour where I've been on so many auditions and gotten so close and have so many stories related to like who got them. That could have been me, and also doing my instrumental, finishing my instrumental album and actually going on tour for that. And I finance that stuff. So I like to be independent that way and just be able to do it full time. But I do enjoy the interaction of working on productions. That's really exciting for me. But I think the ultimate goal would to be on a big tour. But there is the reality of where we are in our career, age, being a female musician. When I started, there was, I had a handful of people that I was influenced by, and it was really hard. I mean, even in when I graduated from school, even in the early 90s, it was, it was still a man's world, and especially I was trying to transition to jazz and fusion, and then it just became that much harder. And now I look at, it's just incredible, the movement in the female musician world, female guitar players world. I mean, the gates are wide open. And I look at that and I'm just so excited at how far we've come. But those opportunities, they weren't there for me. I think I would be in a different place, definitely, if it was a different time. But I'm proud to be a part of all that,
You're still breathing, so that's good. You're still here.
They're still calling me. I still go on a lot of auditions and stuff. It's just, and I get so close, and it is what it is. So
obviously at the epicenter of that at Guitar Player magazine for 20 years, and we tried to break up the boys club. I mean, it's a personal joy for me that women, it's about 50-50 now as far as who buys gear, who searches for music data online, who's out there putting out. I mean, because that really wasn't the scenario it was for so long. And I can't imagine, you forget as a male, I'm sure Nigel feels the same way. It's like, when I wanted to be a musician and I, as a little kid watching TV, I had myriad male, guitarists to look up to. I knew how I was supposed to walk, talk, hold my guitar, all that. So I can't imagine what it would be like if, I was a female. I'm like, well, where's my people on the TV? Where are my people on them? It must have been.
Yeah. And on top of that, I felt like an oddball because I was left-handed. I kept feeling like, everybody I ran into said, you should learn right. There's not going to be guitars available to you, and when in the late 80s, when I was demoing for it, I've been doing the NAMM show since 1987 and demoing for that. And that was really intimidating because I go there, I have to bring my guitar because there was no left-handed guitars at NAMM. And there may be like 10 still to this day.
No, I think left-handers are still smacked a little bit.
It's still, right. It's still a struggle, and all my stuff has to be custom. And I understand. I guess I understand that, but it was, it was hard because it is a man's world, and I come from the guitar hero period. Think of all the guitar heroes during the 80s, and you're a woman and you're left-handed, and so there was a lot of insecurities that I had to get over.
Well, another thing that you mentioned, and one of the things that this is for Nigel, one of the things that, I love British rock coming up in the 60s and all that. Those are most of my influences more than the American bands per se. And there was always that thing about, it was like All for One and Into the Breach, which I'm sure was a bit of a myth. But, what Briana said touched to me a little bit about, having other outlets. I think in America, it's too easy to go, oh, I'll work at a shopping mart and I'll be okay because I'll still get my music stuff together. But I think sometimes it is tougher to really go for it if you're comfortable financially and doing something else. But, you've met both sides. How do you kind of rate that between the, we've got to do this, there's no other choice, versus, okay, I've got a backup plan?
When I was a teenager, and I remember telling my mother and her boyfriend at the time that I was going to be a musician, there was this thing about, that's fine, but have something to fall back on. And I said, fuck that, because in the back of your mind, if you're entertaining an idea of falling back, you're not committed. It's always been hard being a musician and an actor. And you hear about them when they're performing and in work, and you don't hear about the long, hard parts when they're not. But it's just, you get by. Most musicians are really poor, not doing very well. Just a small percent make millions, and yet you hear about them because they're newsworthy, you know, the U2s in this world, etc. But most musicians live on the breadline, and actors too, a lot of them. And work is sporadic and not guaranteed, and everything else. So it's an insecure business. But I believe also now you can work in an office until you're 50 and get laid off and have no idea what you're going to do. So there is no security in anywhere anymore. But, you know, try and live in the moment and not project too much. And I would not want to be in a new band now, because if you're a teenager starting off, I don't think it's any easier, and it has a lot of different hardships involved. It's never been easy to be in the arts, because when I was a boy, so many boys wanted to be a soccer player or a musician. I was no good at sport, and I've always played the guitar. It was a no-brainer. You just do it now and look forward and see, you know, yeah, it's hard. And as for the gender thing, you've made me think about that, because what I like doing if I'm not playing is going and seeing bands with good guitarists in them. And quite frankly, if they're men or women, as long as they're good at the guitar, that's to me what stands out. And I remember a lot of the big hair bands in America in the 80s, they all looked like women. They all had makeup on and big hair and everything else. There was a big crossover. They were immensely effeminate, although you're saying that women were sort of pushed out, and I can see that too. But I think the only way is to just be committed and love what you do and work hard at it. And I'd like to think that the cream rises to the surface eventually.
I did want to acknowledge, speaking of female guitar players that are awesome, Gretchen Menn is out there listening. And
Hi, Gretchen.
Hi, Gretchen. She said, Briana, you helped pave the way. It's because of musicians like you that there are better opportunities for musicians now.
Oh.
She said, Briana, Alexis, such a badass.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Well, on that note of getting out there and playing too, I think one of the COVID things is a lot of clubs, they're on a pretty tight profit margin anyway. We've seen clubs close, certainly in California. I don't know what it's like in England, but I think if clubs start closing because they can't even imagine coming back after being shut down for months, and how that affects, as you mentioned, Nigel, with the younger musicians. When I came up in the 60s and 70s or late 60s, there was always places you could play and be crap. There were a million clubs, and you could be shitty and work out your shittiness, and then you rose to the next club. Now, right. In the Bay Area, you kind of almost have to have a following right away to be able to get into a club, because the ship clubs, for the most part, there's a couple. So I just worry. I'd like both of your opinion on that. Is like, what happens to the rock bands coming up who are trying to get their act together live if there's no place to do it? What do you do?
Exactly, there is. That's why I was saying I wouldn't want to be a young musician now. All I've watched since the late 70s through the 80s is all the venues here shutting down, and there's less and less of them. The virus will do that even more, possibly, because we're talking about when we get back to so-called normal. And as far as gigging, it's depending on which clubs have managed to survive, which promoters are still willing to take a chance if they've got any money. It's going to be so gradual, and it has to hit it hard. And the lack of live music venues now is sad as hell. And they just shut and are replaced by, I don't know, there's a brilliant one down the road from me, the Astoria. It's now part of a new station for Crossrail, a big project. But when they pull down places like that, they should rebuild another one, because these are social, cultural places that are so important for people. And of course, young bands that was what punk was all about. They were sick of the dinosaur bands charging 50 quid to go and see them. And they were angry. There was mass unemployment. It was a feeling of a real feeling. It wasn't just a fashion. And people went out there, and although they couldn't play, they had the balls to stand up and be angry about what was going on, learned a few chords. Remember the old 3-chord wonder cliche? Played them very loud. And then that was the first new wave. And then the second wave gradually evolved with the better bands that could learn to play better and so on. And they survived. But I remember being spoilt for choice in the 70s. Every night of the week that I wasn't playing, you could often go and see 2 bands, one there because it was earlier and then race over to the other venue because it was later. The gig guide in the back of the music press was just full every single night. Now it tends to be Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays and nothing much else. And that's in only a rather few places. There's more bands that want to play than there are venues for them. And that's the established bands, let alone someone new. So I never like to get depressed. I'm just a realist. It's not easy, but it never has been. And where there's a will, there's a way. And out of the blue sometimes, I think the Arctic Monkeys, didn't they make it on the internet? Or maybe I'm misinformed. There might be a new way to get a following and then try and break through. But I think everybody has their own story. There's not a set path. Everyone that gets anywhere has their own way of doing it. And that's what it is.
Briana, do you have any insights onto that?
As far as musicians today, is that the question?
Or young people coming up, or just what our choices are moving forward
for the live.
Yeah,
I think there's good and there's good and bad. I think that they have an edge over us as far as technology goes because they were raised in it. So that's on the upside of it, and learning all these music apps and all these ways to use them. The downside of it is that there has to be interaction with musicians. You get some of these musicians I see online are so comfortable online, and then I've seen them, like for instance at NAMM, they had brought a YouTuber that was his whole career, had a massive following, and then the manufacturer put him in with a seasoned player, and he couldn't play because he wasn't interacting with a live player. And he had a massive following. And so, that's
it's like sex. It's like sex. You can do it on your own in your bedroom, but when it comes to doing it with someone else in public, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah. So it's so important. It's so important to play with live musicians. I think you have to, musicians today have to get together and rehearse and not be comfortable in their home. They have to put themselves out of their comfort zone, and they have to woodshed. We all know we have to woodshed. There's no shortcut.
I mean, one thing an advantage that we have now, I guess you always had this, but with technology, you have the ability to pull it off on a professional level, is you can go direct to the consumer. You could be like, let's say you have a punk band. You're like, we'll make some noise at your house and trash it for $50, and just go in there and just do a house party. You can find places to play. A long time ago, I was on a live stream with Joe Satriani, and they let me come in and talk to Joe, and I was the guy playing in my basement. I had like 1 million followers on the internet. I was still in the military. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any hair, and not that matters, but so Joe was like, man, he said, it's pretty cool. You're in your studio there, He's like, wait till you get it to somewhere where they can throw bottles at you, and he was like, he's like, one thing that you're going to have to learn as a musician, Matt, is you're going to have to learn how to adapt to different environments, and be able to like be a professional in different venues and environments and everything. But I mean, it's just, I think anything you can do to go out there and get your confidence and your courage up, where you can just represent your art to the highest level that you can. Even Corey Churko was talking about, he's playing with Shania Twain, and he's like, we'd get musicians that could just destroy a guitar in front of a camera, and then you put them on stage and they got to stand up and play. You have to relearn your parts. It's not the same dynamic, to be a live performer and a YouTuber.
He
touch the audience,
Wait, say again, Mike.
No, I just
go ahead, Michael.
the point that Matt was saying the YouTubers that sit down and play. I thought that they have to stand up when you're in a band, and it changes how your hands are on them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Briana.
Yeah.
I saw that was such I really enjoyed that episode, and just him talking about just the interaction and the connection. It's almost like when you have that great interaction with your band on stage, when you're having fun and you're not even thinking about the crowd, even though you're still there to entertain, that the crowd sees that. You have to really enjoy what you're doing. And that's almost like something you can't teach, when you're in it and you're on stage.
Although I will say Roddy Chong, one thing that he has kind of helped me with is, he said he had to learn how to smile, like, cause your musicians can be serious sometimes, but like people like to see you smile too, and it's like that you're enjoying yourself, you're having fun. And sometimes you have to make little adjustments. I know, Nigel, that's not very punk rock sounding, but have you ever, have you worked on any of your like stage presence, or are you more just like present it with all the angst you can? And
No, not at all. In fact, I'm thinking about what I'm playing, and people have said I should smile more. I wear my heart on my sleeve. When I'm really enjoying a gig, I probably smile a lot more, and that's a lot more of the time now. And what you were saying, it's not everyone's default setting to be put on a platform with people looking at you to be happy and comfy on your own. Right. Once you get to that stage, then it's obvious if you're enjoying yourself. And in the early days, again, about being an internet musician, you're not used to that. And that's where it has to be your second home, being on a stage, for sure. And I smile more, but I remember when Eddie Van Halen came out, he was always grinning the whole time. And it seemed almost on the top, like, yes, he might be happy, but it was almost insidious grin that was put on, and no one does that the whole time. And you get a brilliant guitarist like Dave Gilmour. I don't really see him smiling, but what he comes out the fretboard is just to die for. So I don't think it matters as much. And you got Gary Moore, who pulls those amazing faces. Would be a cliche. What the fuck does it matter what your face is doing? It's what comes out of your amplifier is the bottom line. And the other thing you were saying about sitting down guitarists, it reminded me, I was telling someone the other day, whenever I check out a new guitar that I might acquire, my default setting is to play it standing up, because it feels so different the way you play it. And also you don't know how well it's balanced. And any guitar that's neck heavy, so you have to support it as well as play, is a non-starter with me immediately. I won't have a neck heavy guitar, and you don't notice that if you're sitting down. So standing up, playing the guitar, being on a stage, projecting yourself, either by grinning or by what you're playing. But I think people can tell if you've done it a lot. I realize now, after 40 years, that people say I look very at home there. Well, I'm sure I wasn't when I was 21, back in the late 70s. But you just made a loud noise and hope for the best. But it was terrifying when you go out there. And that's why people have a couple of drinks, because especially if you're lucky enough to have a large audience, it gives you, it's not fear, but it's certainly adrenaline, isn't it? And to a degree, you still get that.
I think there's also fear, too. I'm sure we've all known musicians who were just brilliant, but could not face being on stage in front of people or being criticized. A lot of it's, too, being criticized by other people. They just said, forget it, I'm going to go home and do this for myself. It's sad, because I think the world has lost some pretty talented musicians due to their own fear.
Being a professional musician is not just how well you play. That's half of it. The other half is being able to deliver it night after night, whether you feel happy, sad, whether someone's just died, or whether you're ecstatic. You've got to be able to do the same good music every night. And that's about performing and have the diplomacy and compromise to remain in a group of people without killing each other.
I mean, and as a guitar player, for me, that moment where you're just it's high energy and you're just getting ready to rip the guitar solo, it's like that minute, or that like 10-second window right before there where you're getting that energy stored up, and you're just you have to control that. Like, I don't know if everyone has that, but I get like anxiety right before I really rip the guitar solo, because I'm trying to put emotion into it. So like, and I'm a new performer, so I'm not experienced in that. But
I mean, I've done this as, Nigel and I are kind of cohorts in how long we've done it, but and Briana, you'll have your own view, as all musicians have their own view. But for me, I just, it's such it's such an amazing experience to be able to play music for people. Yeah. Whether you're in a shitty club, whether you're in a shitty club or whether you're playing for thousands. And I just go into this other world, and I don't really care about anything else. There's no fear, there's no nothing. It's just whatever happens on that stage is the most brilliant thing ever, even if I completely crap my pants with playing a piece of crap. Because I love throwing myself into the abyss. That's one reason I got into music for. I didn't want to put, screw tires on Fords in an assembly line. I didn't want to work in an office where it's always the same thing, although I did end up that way with guitar player. I need that thing where I could screw up at any time hugely. There's no way to be an expert musician where you're going to put on a perfect performance every single show. And I love that danger. That's the biggest part about being a musician to me, is the fact you can't ever have it all togetn't.
Hey, and at least you didn't fall on Reba McEntire's head.
No, I haven't done that.
I don't know if you guys didn't look at the Corey Churko episode. He tells a story about falling in a hole in the stage,
the elevator
on top of Reba McEntire. So you should go check that out. It's hilarious.
But he got up and he was fine. I mean, I think that's what the music business teaches us. When my parents were nervous about me going to music business, I couldn't articulate why I was going to be okay. But further on, it's like, Mom and Dad, I've learned how to survive anything because I've been a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think, mistakes there can be great experiences out of mistakes. Musically, some of the best stuff comes out of mistakes. And performing on stage, I think it's how you recover. Everybody makes mistakes, not to mention all the gear issues that we have with sound and noise and cable, especially if you're your own roadie, which many times I'm my own person. I set up my gear, and I actually like it that way because I know how everything is working. I know if there's something wrong, usually where to go. But, it's just how you recover, because God knows I've made tons of mistakes. And, as long as you put poker face on and you're in it for the right reasons and you're having fun and you know how to recover, that's what sets you apart.
Hey, if you want music, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, Nigel, I know that you've been challenged, because we've talked about this many times, because when the Vibrators tour the States, you don't even know what amp you're going to plug into every night because you're backline, and you've gotten some pretty crap things to plug into, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a crapshoot, as you say. But, that's part of the edge that you were talking about. And it's all good in the end. I mean, unless it's absolutely appalling, and then I'll have some backup pedal that might give it a bit of guts if it's a really thin. I've had someone once, my heart sank in the middle of, Butthole or Arkansas on a Tuesday night. Oh, my dad made this amp out of an old radio. And I just thought, oh my God, I can't believe it. But normally it's Marshall Stacks or PV or, so it's all pretty good these days. Tubes, anything with tubes in it. And when I've taught a couple of people the guitar, when you talk about performing, there's two attitudes. When you're playing something, you learn you're not asking if it's good, you're telling them this is good. And any mistake, if I hit a wrong fret, I'll quickly turn it into another run, and then that mistake disappears. It's not obvious. And then you might learn something, as Briana was saying. So I don't know what is a mistake. And if you want perfect music, listen to the bloody CD. If you want to see songs performed maybe faster than they were recorded and with an edge and where people could fuck up, that is the beauty of a live performance.
I think Miles Davis said something to that effect. He said if you make a mistake, the next note that you played determines whether or not it was a wrong note or not.
Exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or just move up a half a step.
Yeah, that's the joy of guitar. Away. It's a bend or a fret away, the right note.
Well, sometimes you have performers that are so charismatic. Like I remember seeing T-Rex when they came to the States, and I mean I was just completely awed by Mark Bolan's, not only his beauty but just how much charisma he had. He was amazing, and I remember just being. I mean, this this dude's one of the best guitar players ever. And then when I had seen a film of that concert years later, I realized that like he was a half step off the whole time. He was horribly out of tune, but it didn't matter, you know, in the moment, because I just remember these kids and me just screaming, you know. And
there you go. Yeah, it's the
I mean, there's so many guitar players that play out of tune. You know, the instrument is not a perfectly tuned instrument anyway, so it's always a little off. Which, again, it's the beauty, because you know it's where your hands take it.
It's analog.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting to the top of the hour here, and it's about 55 minutes we've been going here. So I want to give everybody kind of a last word. I usually go this way, but I'm going to go the opposite way just to mix it up today. So, Michael, what's your final word for today?
Just thank you to Briana and Nigel for being a part of this thing. It's as Matt is trying to do. We really need some, you know, focus and sharing of knowledge to kind of help musicians through this. And everybody that's been on the show has had more than one or two tidbits that has hopefully inspired or at least calmed some musicians who are dealing with this and not knowing, you know, what to do or how to be creative. And you both have had some, you know, brilliant things to say. And I'm sure that you've helped and inspired a lot of musicians out there in the Kingdom of Rock community. So thank you very much for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Nigel.
Well, thank you again. It's lovely talking to you, Briana, a female guitarist. As you say, there's not as many around. And we will get through this dreadful virus. And music will always be necessary in human beings' lives. And now is a great time, if you're an aspiring guitarist, to practice. There's no excuse not to. Yeah. You sit and you play and you play and you play, which is what I did all through my childhood, every single day. And if you do that, then when this is over, of course, it's not the end of the world. Of course there'll be music. People will be desperate to be entertained again and to be out there, and it'll be good.
And Briana, you get the final word, so make it good.
And I agree with Nigel 100%. This is a great time to woodshed. This is a great time to either pick up any, if you wanted to learn another instrument. You know, for me, I'm gonna start brushing up on my keyboard chops, just because those are so poor, and this is a great opportunity to do that in addition to some woodshedding. And stay positive, support the music community, and I thank you guys so much. It's, you know, Michael, I've known you for years and years, and I've never had this opportunity to talk to you. So thank you for, you know, having me on. Matt, it's great to know you, and it's great to meet Nigel. So thank you guys so much for just including me in this. And it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell everyone this Sunday, let's see, it's currently Friday. So this Sunday, we're going to have two meetups. We have a meetup from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our guests. So all the musicians that appear on the show, we all get together and Zoom and kind of talk and network and share ideas and frustrations and stories and what have you. And then from 2 to 4, we have a community meetup for all the Kingdom of Rock listeners. So just join the Kingdom of Rock Backstage Pass Facebook group for an invite, or just send me a message, or you can email me at kingdomofrockpodcast@gmail.com. So that's it for today. Thank you, Briana.